Before we get rolling tonight, I want to remind everybody who is here in the audience to please know there will be no public comment tonight. This is strictly to meet the candidates and see their platform. Also, I would like everyone to please silence their phone throughout the evening. That way our candidates are not distracted. We will go straight through. We have 12 questions that have been sent in. We will take no commercial breaks. We did flip a coin earlier to establish order. Amy won that, and so she will go first, and then we will flip-flop each question. So with that being said, let's now meet our candidates, and we will start first with Amy Schmidt-Peters, who, again, won the coin flip. Amy, we will give you 3 minutes to go ahead, and you can introduce yourself.
Great. Thank you so much, and I just want to give a big shout-out to Castle Country Radio that they're hosting us tonight and bringing this to everyone in the area. It really does help us as candidates to get the word out. So first off, you know that I was born and raised in this county, and I was born to a coal miner and a traditional housewife. So I know this county very well and the community. I went away for quite a while, about 20 years, and hooked up with my husband, and he was in the military, and that's where we had met. But here I am running for county assessor because I believe in fairness across the board and transparency, and I believe that I can give leadership into that team in collaboration with those that we work with closely to bring a better office and better service to the community. Along with that, my financial experience began reconciling books for businesses. I also went into purchasing accounts, which was taking care of some large accounts for companies, and then I also worked for, when I was at the Republic of Korea at a base there, I worked for the base finance. So I do have a good background, solid background in financing and great leadership as well. I have a doctorate degree in organization and leadership, and I believe that I can help this county do great things here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gil, I will also give you 2 minutes. It is important to mention that while each candidate is allowed 2 minutes, they don't necessarily have to fill the full 2-3 minutes. And so, Gil, I believe the introduction was 3 minutes for Amy, so we'll give you 3 minutes to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jordan. And again, just thank you for doing this. It's a great opportunity for us to actually get our faces in front of a camera, as well as share our feelings about Carbon County. And my name is Gillan Bishop. I am seeking re-election and your vote this year. For these last 4 years, I have had the opportunity to serve as county assessor, and I've enjoyed my time in doing it. Originally, I'm from the UK. I actually came to the United States in 2003 and made Castle Country my home. I married a Castle Country girl, and I raised 5 children here. I have a master's degree in business administration, and I've been working in the real estate appraisal world for probably about the last 7 years. It was something that I actually originally were kind of being hosted now by USU. And originally when I was working here at USU, I saw a Republican Lincoln Day dinner, and I had the opportunity to decide that, you know, the things that were going on there and the people that were leading this county, that I realized that's something that I could do. And so I studied out the jobs and the roles that were available at the county, and I decided that being a county assessor was something that I was interested in. I actually went to Florida to get my license, and after getting my license, came back and started practicing on my own as a fee business, we call it. After I became a citizen in 2019, the very next year I put in for my candidacy and won. And so it was something that I felt passionate about. I do feel passionate about, and I feel that the values that the Republican platform holds, as well as Castle Country has, is right in line with the values that I have. And so I'm very honored to be representing the people for these last 4 years, and I know that given the opportunity to step forward and do another 4 years, there's many things that I can continue to improve in this office and continue to bring to the table. Yeah, I think that's a little bit about me. I'm very I would say that I'm a tried and tested candidate as far as coming up against difficult situations. Probably one of the most important things that a candidate can have is their willingness to speak with the public and address concerns that they may have in a very direct, open, and honest manner. We've had many of those types of interactions over the last year, and I know that I can continue to bring that to the table.
Thank you. A reminder before we get going that early voting for the 2024 primary election will be conducted at the Carbon County Administration Building. Now, that location is 751 East, 100 North in Price. It will take place downstairs during the hours of 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and it will begin on Tuesday, June 18th, and it will run through Friday, June 21st. And now we'll get into the questions that have been emailed in. Due to a coin flip, again, Amy will have the first opportunity to answer. She'll have 2 minutes. We'll give Gil 2 minutes. Then we'll give Amy 60 seconds to rebuttal anything that she would like to either add on or go back at with Gil. And then Gil will get 60 seconds to close out the question. We'll then flip the order going into question 3. Amy, the first question, there are many general duties of county assessor. What would be some of the most important duties to you if elected as the next Carbon County assessor? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. The best thing to bring to the table right now is collaboration and teamwork. Bringing that leadership into the county office will really help in the assessor's office and across the board to work with the commissioners, the treasurers, the recorder, making sure we're a full team in that building. So when we do meet with the public and the community, that we can bring a good basic set of knowledge to them. I want to educate the public. I will be putting out small educational things, just little excerpts so people are educated and understanding what assessor's office does. And of course, being open for them and being there for them.
Okay. Gil, we'll go to you. 2 minutes. I'll repeat the question for you. There are many general duties of a county assessor. What would be some of the most important duties if you are re-elected as the county assessor?
Thanks, you, Jordan. So the core is value. I mean, when it comes down to the property that we own within the Carbon County, the assessor needs to place a value on every piece of property. Ultimately, whether it's the commercial or the residential or the business personal property, everything gets a value. And why do we do that? Our particular system takes the value that everyone has and then multiplies it by a rate to fill the budget. That's done so that people that have more property naturally could provide more and can give more to the tax base. And so by valuing everything fairly, we can then divvy out that actual money or collect that money. So that's the core function of the job. Everything else feeds into those values. Whether it's greenbelt, determining whether or not a farmer is actively using their land and getting a reduction for that, whether it's a home that has primary residential exemption, that a family gets that 45% discount because it's their primary home. Everything flows into making sure that value is fair and equitable. Now, there's one other thing that as an elected official, we do represent the Republican values. And just this last year, I sat on 2 committees with the Utah Association of Counties and made my Republican voice heard. Why did I do that? Because there's many things that go on at the state level outside of the county that needs a strong voice for the people. And if we're not there and we're not voting, then your voice is not being heard. A quick example of that, I only got 10 seconds, it was the baseball stadium that came in. We voted on that, all of the elected officials, to make sure that the TRT tax that was going to be used to fund it didn't happen. So those are the core things that go on as the assessor.
Amy, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, I would. A couple other things is just making sure that we are in good relationships with the tax commission in the state of Utah. That is working with them, asking them questions, and just getting that networking ability across them so that we know that we're all on the same sheet.
Gil, you have 60 seconds if you would like it.
Yeah, and a little bit of a different take on the tax commission there. They are great, but they need to know their place as well. And as the assessor, you need to be able to take information from them and absorb it, but also be an independent voice to push back against anything that the tax commission may be pushing down, which is just, inappropriate. And, that is something that I feel strongly about. I do think that at times we can get starstruck. They're only human. They come and they look at the data the same way that we do, and we need to be able to realize that, from a local level, we need to maintain as much local control over the processes as possible so that we can, make our own decisions and determine our own destiny. And that's something that I feel very strongly about, local control and, working with, I don't work for the tax commission. Thank you.
I'll move on to the next question. Gil, you'll begin on this one. What does the term fair and equitable mean to you, and how would you meet this requirement to the citizens and business owners of Carbon County? Gil, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that is the crux of everything, coming down to fair and equitable. What it means, when the tax commission comes, they will do a study for us, and they want us to fall within 5%. So that means 95 to 105 of the sales that have taken place that year. But when it comes to a rural county, that can sometimes be really difficult because we may only have 10 sales that took place last year of commercial properties. So that means it's a very, very limited data set that we're using, and we're making big decisions off of that limited data set. So fair and equitable, it's not just hitting the number exactly and getting it down the line, but one thing it is important that you do is do it in such a way that if an actual taxpayer has a concern, because it's their property, they're going to know it much better than I do. They're going to know it better than anyone. That we are open and available to have them come in and address any concerns that they have about that property value that we've levied against them. Giving them appropriate time to talk to me, to have access to the information. Ultimately, an assessor needs to be two things. It needs to be a subject matter expert, and they need to be able to make those decisions. And when people come in and meet with me, that's exactly what they get. They get someone that they can sit down, they can talk to, and we can go through and find out exactly what is fair and equitable for their property. I mean, one really important thing that's been highlighted this year is that we've identified that we've made great progress in our land values, but we need to refocus on our zoning. We have zoning that by the book, it says that it's a residential zone for 5,000 square feet, but it's above Helper, and it's right next to where the Balance Rock is. There's no way it'll ever be developed, but that's what it's zoned. So right now we've got to address that and maybe get a little bit tighter and understand that, yes, the zoning may be black and white there, but there's a bigger picture. And that's something that, it has to be taken case by case. Thanks.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, I'll repeat the question for you. What does the term fair and equitable mean to you, and how would you meet this requirement to the citizens and business owners of Carbon County? You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Fair and equitable means to me that when we evaluate property across the board, we need to be first organized in the office. And having an organization within the coins and the Puma databases is to make sure they're organized correctly. So when you go out to the residential property, that you're able to take that property and take similar properties together and be able to give them a valuation. So that's very important because you don't want to have an acre of field $700 while other properties that is exactly the same that is $7,000. So fair and equitable means all this acreage, 1 acre, needs to be really close together, closer to maybe $2,000 each, maybe some are $3,000 each. So if you're not doing a fair and equitable across the board, then you're having some people pay more in their property tax while others are paying less, and that isn't fair and equitable, right? So you want to make sure that your organization in these databases is more correct and very balanced and organized so you can give that information, and when you value those properties across the board, that you're given an equal and fair balanced valuation to them.
Gil, you have 60 seconds to add if you would like.
Yeah, thanks. And that's a really great point. Making sure that your data has a really great starting point is fundamental. One of the things that you'll hear appraisers say is that when it comes to valuation, it depends. I mean, it really does depend. There's so many variables that can go into a particular property's value and whether or not it's fair or equitable. I mean, I've seen two homes that are side by side, and based on their age and whether or not the basement's been finished, the values have been wildly different. Even though from the street you can look at them and they look almost identical. So when it comes down to it, making sure that we have a set of data that we are constantly going through and making sure that it is as refined and as accurate as possible is the ongoing pursuit of the assessor's office. It's something that we pick up and we need to always move forward. It's always a moving target.
Amy, you have 60 seconds to add.
Sure, thank you. Exactly. I think both Gillan and I are on the same page on this because you must have that database accurate, making sure your cells are up to date. And you have to know that every piece of property is unique and everybody has something different in their home. So,
thank you. We go to question 4. We're moving right along, and Amy, you're going to have the opportunity to answer this one first. Many people feel that Greenbelt status in the community is being abused. As assessor, what will you do to audit the validity of the Greenbelt designation that landowners are using throughout the county? 2 minutes.
That's a great question. So, as an assessor's office, it is set up that you look at your Greenbelt and process it appropriately. When you get Greenbelt applications, you need to go through the code and make sure you're meeting each of those valuations. If it doesn't meet something, sometimes it's not black and white. There are variables because, like we say before, each piece of property is unique and what they could use it for. So you really need to drill down when those applications come in and make sure they're set appropriately. Always know that each property, if it's resold, is going to come into the database again, but know that assessor needs to look at this every 5 years, every piece of property out there. So if these green belts aren't getting looked at every 5 years to make sure they're being used appropriately, as they were set up in the beginning, then that might not be fair and equitable to other people. That's where you'd get your inequities.
Okay. Gil, I'm going to ask you the same question. Many people feel that the Greenbelt status in the community is being abused. As assessor, what will you do to audit the validity of the Greenbelt designation that landowners are using throughout the county?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so Greenbelt is a massive tax reduction. It's about 98% of the overall property's value. And one of the things that we've done in the office is that we've actually identified every single parcel that has Greenbelt. So I'll put into an Excel sheet, and we go through what's called a random audit. A random audit is where we will choose some in a given day, and then we will actually go out to those properties. We will view them on satellite footage, and we will actually see whether or not their production requirements are being maintained or done. That can be done through a variety of different things. They could come and show us maybe a tax return showing that they have interacted with, selling animals or buying animals. It could be veterinarian bills. It could be physically going out and seeing that, hey, the hay was here and now it's cut down here. They are doing production. But the one thing I would say with what the premise of the question leads to is that 99% of the people that I have interacted with that are Greenbelt owners, Greenbelt holders in the Castle Country are good, honest people, and they are just trying to utilize the land the best of their ability. Most farmers do not make money off of their land. They make enough just to keep their farm going, to spray the weeds, and to keep their tractors running. There is no pot of gold at the end of pulling everyone off a Greenbelt. And if you watch the actual state legislation with HB 520 that just came out, it will actually increase the protections for Greenbelt holders so that if they're participating in, like, for example, water, where they're sending their water downstream, they will not lose their status. So I feel very strongly about helping to protect the farmer's right to have Greenbelt.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, you have 60 seconds if you would like to add on.
I don't need to add on. Thank you. Yeah.
Gil,
Sure.
I can give you an additional 60 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Greenbelt is such an interesting one. Some of the things is like just today we got a phone call and it came down to, you've got a closing agent, they're trying to close. They need to be able to work out the rollback taxes on a particular piece of property. Being able to understand the system, step in, immediately bring up those numbers and get them out to them. It meant that the buyer felt comfortable with the numbers, the seller had all the information that they needed, and they could move forward. One of the nice things, and one of the things about Greenbelt is that it's got a 5-year rollback, which means that if you're doing something wrong and you're pulled off, if you're not living up to the standards and you get pulled off, 5 years of back taxes are paid back. So while it is a very broad program, and it does give a very big incentive for farmers to keep their farm going, it does have a huge clawback for people who are abusing it, which at times we will use. But
Thank you, Gil.
thanks.
Again, if you would like to email questions to our future Meet the Candidates that we have coming up over the next couple of weeks, that email is election2024. Again, that's election2024 without an S. There's no S in there. Election2024 at KOAL.net. And again, tonight we are meeting with the candidates for on the Republican ballot for the county assessor. We've talked about early voting. That is going to open up on Tuesday, June 18th. That'll run through Friday, June 21st. Voters may vote in person on June 25th at the Carbon County Administration Building. The location is the vote center for the primary election, and it is ADA accessible. Let's move on to the fifth question, and this one, Gil, you'll have the first response to it. If a property owner does not have the Greenbelt status and the owner requests it, does the assessor have the authority to declare a Greenbelt designation on the parcel? 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Greenbelt, it comes through and the application comes in, and once it's received before May 1st, it would be the assessor that goes through and makes them and signs it off. It's like they have an affidavit. My signature goes on to the piece of paper and says that, yep, they have declared that they are living up to these standards. One thing which is in all practical, aspects, when the rubber hits the road, you could have a landowner come in the dead of winter, and they say, I've got 100 cattle, I'm going to be running on this piece of ground, and it's up in Schofield. Well, it's the dead of winter. There's no chance to get up there to see any animals. There is no animals up there. And so a lot of times people will be introduced into that program and will be signed off, and the paperwork will go through, and then within the first 12 to 24 months, we'll go up there and verify that those animals are actually there. That's a very common practice. That's how it happens in every county. There's no way to get someone through the process without someone coming in and making a declaration. Once they make those declarations, you can read the actual affidavit. You can pull up any affidavit, and they make certain declarations that they are living up to these standards, and we witness and say, yep, they said that they're going to do that. So the assessor, yes, the assessor has the authority to declare that. Now, ultimately, if we talk about globally, every value that's put on a property and every status that's put on a property not only goes through the assessor and closes the roll, but it also goes through the Board of Equalization. And what that means is that there's a second eyes that go across everything. I'm not saying that the Board of Equalization checks everything, because that would be impossible, but they have the opportunity and time frame to step in on anything that they feel may have not been done correctly, and they can exercise their authority to reverse. But ultimately, May 1st, yes, the assessor is the one that does signs off on those.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, I'm going to repeat the question for you. If a property owner does not have the Greenbelt status and the owner requests it, does the assessor have the authority to declare a Greenbelt designation on the parcel?
It's written out in the where do the FAA values come from. So it is it's online to look at every single detail of that. I know I'm going to show you. It's like several pages worth of notes that how you classify and how you prepare yourself for getting into Greenbelt status. Getting that, as far as the section code, Utah code is 59-514. And so I'm not in the assessor's office, but I would definitely, that's where I would look to see if I have that authority. And Gillan is telling us that he does have that authority if it comes in before May 1st. But it's an application. As far as me going out and saying, hey, you should have greenbelt status, most people, the assessor's office is pretty busy at that point. It's them coming to you. And if you have a pretty good sized property, I would definitely throw that at you and tell you, hey, you may want to put in for that. So.
Gave us a nice visual even with the video. We don't get that too often, many pages. Gil, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to go ahead and add on to anything you would like to say or anything that Amy would have to say.
Yeah, I mean, with ultimately with going through the Greenbelt process, this leads to kind of an overarching theme, is that the assessor does make decisions within their realm, and they are independent in that realm, and they need to be able to. It's set up that way. Our state legislator and laws intended it to be that way, so that you can go to an individual person, and that person will administer those programs, and ultimately be responsible for those programs. And if it wasn't, if there's always these unsure about who's in charge and who do you need to go to, it would cause confusion to the public. So 100%, I truly believe and support in the independence of the office of the assessor, that they are not beholden to the tax commission, they're not beholden to the commission, and it's important for them to make a clear decision and have the ability to do that.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, you have an additional 60 seconds.
You bet. Okay. So as far as the assessor's office, you are independent. You're elected official. You work with the realm that you are by that code, by the 59, Section 59, and you abide by those rules. They are put together by the Tax Commission of the state of Utah, and you work within those guidelines. As far as I think in the community itself, I think one of my platforms is resources. People need to know and be educated about what they can get. If I run across something that people come in with and they have large pieces of property, let's look to see if we can put it into Greenbelt. There are statuses that people should take note of and resources, and I would definitely help people do that.
Thank you. Amy, you'll start this next question. It's kind of a lengthy one. Is it common practice for a single parcel property to have both a primary residential and a commercial designation? An example, a gas station having primary residential status or a farm having a commercial designation. How would you correct this?
Boy.
2 minutes.
All right, so that's a great question, and I would know more about it if I was working every day as an assessor. But because I'm not in that office, I'm going to give my best shot on that. As far as the rules of assessing, there is zoning rules that are already set up. Now, if there is something that's a flip-flop between there's commercial within a residential, is that what the question was? Is that correct?
It was asking for, let me pause the time.
Sure.
I'm going to pause the time for you, just so, because I said it was a lengthy, kind of a wordy question.
It is.
So, is it common practice for a single parcel or property to have both a primary residential and a commercial designation? That's the question. It continues on with an example of, an example would be a gas station having primary residential status or a farm having a commercial designation. How would you correct this? That was the full question.
Okay.
We'll continue now.
Okay, great. All right, so as far as one parcel being both, I think that would be very difficult to have a commercial within a residential and getting a residential status. That's the way I'm reading or hearing this question. So honestly, if there's something that doesn't seem right, then I think we should probably look at that and just talk with the property owner and see which one are we needing it to be. If it's zoned correctly, that's what we'd have to look back on and look at planning and zoning and make sure it's zoned correctly for them to get the best tax rate that they can.
Thank you. Gil, I'll repeat the question just because there is a lot to it, but is it common practice for a single parcel or property to have both a primary residential and a commercial designation? An example would be a gas station having primary residential status or a farm having a commercial designation. How do you correct this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and ultimately comes down to the question, to the answer. It depends, because ultimately they are very simple, straightforward properties, and then there are properties that stray into the complex. Can that exist? Yeah, for sure it can. If you go down Main Street, you'll find dozens of examples where you'll have commercial buildings that have commercial retail space at the bottom, and then on the exact same parcel, they've got living space above. We've got to be able to identify those and respect the things that they get. I mean, you take, for example, any of the senior living places that are here in town. People live at those places year-round. They're commercial entities, they're for-profit, yet they still are allowed to get the primary exemption. So meaning they get that 45% discount. Farms, most farmers around here live at their farms. So they've got a home there. They've got their place where they're living, and then they've got a large establishment roundabout that still can fall under commercial. So unfortunately, we call it mixed use, and we call it, complex. And those are times where it's important to slow down. It's important to try and get our bearings on the property and ultimately look at what's driving the value for that property. Ultimately, we use cost approach in the assessment world as our core, but there are two other approaches to value. There's the income approach and the sales comparison. Very rarely do we use sales comparison unless we're getting into our actual ratio study later on, and I could talk about that later, but income approach, when you start getting into the valuation of a commercial entity, could be the strongest approach to be able to say how much money is this property actually making. And that's when you can say, oh, okay, well, now it makes sense and I understand why this property is being valued the way that it is. So,
Thank you, Gil. Amy, I'll give you 60 seconds if you would like to add on to anything.
No, I think we clarified pretty well there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Gil, anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, as far as like complex properties go, another one would be like assisted or subsidized housing. It's a whole animal of itself, and what that means is that there's homes in Carbon County that are valued strictly on the amount of income that they bring in. And why is that important? It's because their business model is set up to say, I understand I could get $1,000 in rent from this individual, but we are going to lower it to $600 so that we can get that person a house. They can afford it because that's all they can afford. And those particular properties that have low income and they're LIHTC houses or properties, they are valued specially. They are completely different on their valuation modeling. So you could have one apartment complex here and another apartment complex right next to it. One has low income, will be valued less than the one that has regular income because of the amount of money they're allowed to generate. So,
Thank you, Gil.
yeah.
We move on to the next question, and Gil, you will start. By state law 59-2-303, General Duties of the County Assessor states the tax roll is to be submitted before May 22nd. When meeting this date and submitting the final tax roll for each year, would you take the responsibility and declare these numbers are a result of your work and certify them as your numbers? 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you take a look, when we actually close the roll, there's a document that we sign, and it is stating that to the best of our abilities in the previous months leading up, we have gone through, made a thorough examination of the county, and that these numbers are true and correct to the best of our knowledge. When you turn around and, like I told you, the state has some guidance for us being at 95 or 105%. What does that mean? It means that we can be off by 105 to by 5% either way, or 10% ultimately. We closed a tax roll this year of almost $2 billion in real property. 10% of that is $200 million. So the tax commission gives us a green light if we're $100 million either way. So when we look at values, there is, like I discussed with, I was emailing the commissioners just as we were closing the tax roll this year, and I told them that, hey, there's a couple of properties I've identified because unfortunately we got our commercial numbers really late in the game. I mean, we were hoping to get those a lot earlier. We got those commercial numbers on the 20th of this month. And that made it very tight to be able to turn that around and get those in a reasonable manner. And so what does that mean? It means that, there is room for error. the train is so big that if you see a $2 billion train going down the tracks and there's a couple of $1 million on we're not going to stop for that couple $1 million because we have to close, and then we're going to go back during the BOE process and clean those types of things up. So are they my numbers? Ultimately, the buck stops with me. I'm in the assessor's office, but you've got to be able to look at the big picture, and you've got to be able to push everything forward to make sure that the process moves.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
By state law 59-2-303, general duties of county assessor states the tax roll is to be submitted before May 22nd. When meeting this date and submitting the final tax roll for each year, would you take responsibility and declare these numbers are a result of your work and certify them as your numbers?
So, great question. Yes, so by May 22nd, I believe this time it rolled into today, I want to say, that the tax roll was closed out. Was that correct?
Yeah, we were changing numbers to
Okay.
today.
So, as far as what the assessor needs to do is to make sure the valuation is on the properties, commercial and residential, and real property out there is that it is solid numbers as close as you can get. As far as getting 100%, like you say, the tax commission allows you 5% on each side of that. But is getting as close as that is the responsibility of the assessor to come in with the valuations, and that backs up to all the organization that goes on behind and in the assessor's office to make sure everything is correct so you can assess property accordingly. So once those numbers do hit, then you bring them on up to and make sure that they are set and ready to go into the county clerk's office, and then they are verified. It just keeps rolling with that. So you basically are responsible because you need to make sure your numbers are correct. So
Thank you. Gil, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I mean, let's talk about why we were going all the way till like just today. So like I mentioned in my previous comments, we got the commercial numbers on the 20th. Our residential numbers have been ready for weeks. Our commercial numbers that were done by our outside agency, we got them on the 20th. I could have just packaged them and put them in the system and been good to go, but I did a cursory look over them and I knew that they were not right. Last year when we sent them our numbers, we had $425 million in valuation for commercial. This year's numbers, when we first got them back on the 20th, were a little over $1 billion. That's double. I mean, that's like crazy numbers. We turned around and we put those into an Excel spreadsheet. We kicked them back to the company and said, these can't be right. And we started to highlight ones that we had concerns with. Over the several days from that time till now we're looking at $575 million, $425 million lower. I mean, we worked hard to be able to work through intermediaries to be able to make sure that these numbers were as close and as accurate as possible.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, 60 seconds if you would like to add anything.
I just want to reiterate that going into this job, I'm a highly organized person, so just making sure that things are accurate, that we work from June through December, making sure that everything has been evaluated, so when the first of the year comes forward, we're ready to go into that office and we can bring into the tax roll by the appropriate date, which is May 22nd. Regardless of some of these, I mean, some of the numbers that do come in, you might get way one side or the other, but you need to trust your people and trust those if you're hiring out for the commercial assessment that things are accurate they're supposed to be. So
Thank you. Amy, we'll start with you on this next question. How important is it to you to ensure the citizens of Carbon County have an assessor's office with a trained and competent staff?
It's very important to have that. We need to make sure we have an assessor's office that is highly trained in there. Going back in my work history, this is one of the things I have always felt passionate about, is making sure my people are well trained. Setting goals up for them, making sure they get the training they need, going and making sure we get the budget that we need to help train them and develop them. So I put them before me, and I've done that over the years when I've worked here at USU. I've done that prior in my teaching roles. I've always tried to help others be successful. I think it's paramount that we have an assessing office that can do the job well. Myself, I will need the training as well, and to go into it according to the code, I do have up to 36 months to get that training done, and that's what I'm going to be hitting the road doing, is taking care of that. I have a feeling I'm going to be heavily, like, lots of stuff on me all at once, I'm sure, but I'm ready to tackle that on. I'm well qualified for that type of work. I'm a hard worker, and I know that I can do that position. I just think people in that assessing office, you are facing the public, and you can every day. We're here for the community. We are, we're generated by your tax dollars, and people in the public office needs to make sure that you know you work for the citizens out there, and that's what I want to do.
Thank you. Gil, I'll repeat the question. How important is it to you to ensure the citizens of Carbon County have an assessor's office with a trained and competent staff?
Yeah, I think that's tremendously important. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why before I even put my hat into the arena, I got licensed. I got a very good understanding about the language that you will speak while you're an assessor. I mean, it would be a terrifying ordeal for me to think of trying to learn how to build a ship and steer a ship and to do everything at the same time, because people's questions and the county's needs they're never on pause. It is a constant cycle that just keeps rolling, whether or not you're ready for it to keep rolling or prepared. I mean, it just keeps coming at you. And so the ability to be able to answer a question and to be able to apply appraisal theory while contemplating the legal ramifications of the laws and then getting that fair and equitable tax is crucial. And that starts top down. And then, in our office right now, we have two people that are trained on personal property, meaning they have a designation from the state saying that they are able to do personal property. That's two more than we had 12 months ago. I mean, it's a fantastic accomplishment that they've done there. We have notaries now within our office, and we have utilized remote learning to be able to tap into a few more classes or options to get classes so that people can get their trainee appraisal licenses. Because ultimately, creating an opinion of value is one thing. Anyone can have an opinion, but having a license and being, a designated person at the state level allows there to be some credibility behind that. And right now, all of the decisions, the Board of Equalizations, the valuation questions and concerns, right now they all get hit back up to the assessor because right now I'm the only one with a license. To have no license in the office would truly be a head scratcher of how you would be able to do things and close things and get the tax roll done.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, you have 60 seconds if you'd like to add anything.
I think it's just a great challenge that will be coming. I look forward to it. I know that I'm a hard worker, and to me, numbers are my friend. And so I just want to let you know that I will work hard for this county, this community, because I was born and raised here. And that, to me, I know the people around here. I know lots of people across the board, whether they're my friend or foe out there. I think they all deserve a fair assessment. And I want to be able to work hard for them because I'd be in a public service. And that is ultimately something that everybody should be aware of, is that it's your tax dollars paying for these people's salaries, and this here is a service to you, the community. And I think that means a lot, and I think that they deserve a lot.
Thank you. Gil, 60 seconds if you'd like it.
Yeah, I actually think I'll jump back to a question from before. Like when you're talking about closing the tax roll in a previous question, last year, to give some context, the commission and myself drew battle lines that ultimately led to a move in valuation of $100 million. That's a pretty big deal. And it was very public. And this year, when we got the commercial numbers, we took the time to shave off over $400 million in their initial valuations that they gave us. 4 times the value of everything that took place last year. I mean, that was the magnitude of getting it right. And you know what? I commend the commission for giving my office the space to be able to say, hey, this is a big deal. We're going to go ahead and get that fixed. And we did. We brought that down for over $400 million and feel much more comfortable with the commercial values.
Thank you, Gil. Once again, you are listening to Meet the Candidates 2024. Today we're being joined by Gillan Bishop and Amy Schmidt-Peters. They appear on the Republican ballot for the Carbon County Assessor. A couple of key dates I want to throw out there. June 14th is the last day to register to vote without having to vote provisionally. Okay, so if you need to register to vote, remember you'll need to show a valid form of photo ID that shows your name, a photograph, and a current address. You'll need 2 different forms of identification that will also show your name and a current address, utility bill, bank statement, etc. We will now move on to an interesting part because, again, all these questions have been emailed in from people within the community. And if you would like to participate in Meet the Candidates, it's really simple. You just send your email to election2024@KOAL.net. These questions are more geared towards each of you individually. So I tried to group them together so they're around about the same way. We don't get these too often. Okay, so this will be a little bit different, but we're going to keep the same format. Gil, you will have the first question. Okay? It says, whereas the state of Utah says you have failed to fulfill requirements of your position, and whereas the Carbon County Board of Commissioners have publicly stated that you have failed to fulfill the job of assessor, and whereas the taxpayers of Carbon County have paid an outside person to do your job, why should taxpayers of Carbon County reelect you? 2 minutes.
Well, it's a very direct question. But so ultimately, last year, we had an audit done by the state. And they came in and they highlighted 5 things. And the biggest thing that they said was that our tax roll wasn't good. And they said that they were going to audit it to be able to get to the bottom of it. The ironic thing that happened this year, in the end of January, they came to me and they said, because I was waiting for this audit to happen. They said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to go ahead and go back and redo 2023. Just go ahead, include it in the work that you're doing right now. And we were like, okay, we're going to be doing it the exact same way that we did it last year. They said, just include it in the way that you're going forward, and it's fine. I mean, let that sink in. I mean, the tax commission said that they would not conduct the audit. That was in their core things. We will conduct an audit and give findings. They did not do a detailed audit of last year. So quite frankly, when you go back and you say like, oh, the commission feel like we failed, or the commission feel, or the, I forget what else you said. I just fundamentally believe that the foundation for the concerns and the alarm was just unwarranted. I just described to you in my last question 4 times the value of the whole thing that happened last year we identified from our commercial numbers and worked to get fixed this year. Is just like we calmly and logically and methodically will go forward addressing any concern. And I inherited a system that was not perfect. It had a lot of areas of concern, and we've been dealing with the volume of growth that is unprecedented for this county. How do you want to do like the 30, 60 seconds and things?
I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
We're going to come back. Amy, your question. What qualifications do you have for the position of assessor? Are you licensed? Do you hold the necessary accreditations required by the state of Utah? And if not, what is your plan to acquire them? 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. It's a very valid question, because even as Gillan was stepping into the assessor position, 4 years ago, he had 36 months to get his qualifications as well. So every county assessor like ourselves coming into a position like this, according to the tax laws, we're able to take 36 months and get our license and accreditation so we can assess and be fully licensed. So my plan to do this is jump in right away. My qualifications prior to this, I understand numbers. I've done reconciliations of books. I've been over multi-million-dollar state and federal budgets and on complex initiatives, and so I feel I can handle that. And so my plan to jump in, the tax commission has it all rolled out for you every year for you to take what classes you need so you can get your license and be certified. That's my plan.
All right. Gil, I'm going to go back to you for 60 seconds. You can handle whatever you want. If you want to piggyback off of answering your question, if you want to off of Amy's at 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, day one, I was ready to go because I have the credentials for being an appraiser in the fee world. There is no other credential that you need to get. Now there is a law that has passed this last year that requires the assessor to go through a global training course that's still being developed by the state. We'll probably see that this year at some point. But day one, I had the ability to speak the language I needed to speak, and I was just applying what I knew to this new scenario. But ultimately, I mean, the question that was posed to me about the lack of confidence, maybe with the commission and the tax commission, I mean, there are areas to improve, and I highlighted that I had inherited a system that had areas of significant change that needed to happen, and I decided to take each year as it came and to make small corrections each year. That probably was not the most aggressive way to do it. I probably should have been more aggressive in wiping the slate clean about what was there before, and so but I can, and I have shown that I can continue to move forward and do an excellent job at closing the roll and being the assessor.
Thank you. Amy, Gil got 90 seconds, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds as well.
Okay,
Thanks.
to just roll on to that. So as far as just addressing getting started into the assessor's office, there's things that it must be organized. I'm a highly organized person, and knowing numbers, I can do this job for you. My main thing is the leadership and helping others get trained in that office, working as a team with others in that office, working with the commissioners, sitting down with them, working with the public, working with the treasurer, working with the county clerk, making sure that we're all a team. Planning and zoning is also on my mind right now because they get those times when people put in and they have to get a residential permit or a commercial permit, and new buildings are being built or things are being changed into people's homes, and those are things that need to be collaborated within the whole area. So I believe strongly that I can do that job and I can help the citizens of this community.
Thank you. We have another question, and it kind of piggybacks off of the last one a little bit, so it's just going to give you guys some more time. Amy, you get to start this go around. Okay. It says, what will you do differently in your running of the office to ensure that the county meets the standards and timelines required by the state and not have the problems that the county has seen over the last 2 years? 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. That's a great question, just to make sure things are properly run in the office. And the major thing, I think we kind of went over this a little bit in a prior question, is making sure things are run appropriately. Working as a team is paramount in that office with all the other folks that are within the whole building. Making sure you're there, setting appropriate hours for yourself and the assessors that are within there, within the staff that are helping. And so I believe that being there, going to work every day, helping people, taking in their questions, concerns, taking in drop-ins, whatever people need to want to come in and talk to me about. And the other staff as well. Just making sure leadership is in place, because I think it's very important that folks know you have strong leadership, but they can look up to you and they know that you have their back. So making sure they're trained, meeting their goals, because they want to be there and they want to do a good job for the public, and so they want that training. So why not get it? And I think just making sure that we are ready to go, that we're ready to have an office that is open for the public so that they know that they can get their questions answered.
Thank you. Gil, your question is very similar. If re-elected, what are you going to do differently to ensure the county meets the standards and timelines required by the state? 2 minutes.
Yeah. Putting the first things first, focusing on sales cleaning earlier. Right now, some of the schedules and timelines that they give us, we start looking at sales January 1st. And right now, sales are going on, and we could pull sales from halfway through the year and start working them early. So right now, we've got up until almost the end of May, and I could pull those from the MLS and start working them in prep work for next year. That is something that we could do. Ultimately, we did employ something that was really successful this year, and that was using Google Street Views. We typically would go out, and the way that the office had been run in the past before me is that they'd go out and they'd take a picture of the properties being reviewed in any given year. That would take 2 staff members almost 2 months to complete. We did it in about 2 weeks. And how did we do it in 2 weeks? We bought a $3,000 camera, we mounted it to a hood of a car, drove the entire area, and so now we have a 3D image, or street views, and you, the public, can go on right now and look at the Price city and see the exact picture that we used to value your home. Why does that help? I mean, it keeps the people in the office, and if they're doing, let's say, 20 to 50 reviews a day, the more days we can keep them in the office doing those reviews and not out in the field just taking one photograph, that is productivity. We also went through and we completely scanned out of all of the, we call it the vault. Before I got into the office, they had every single parcel as a printed out paper parcel. That was insanely difficult and tedious to maintain. That was one of the first things I did the first month there, completely stopped that, and now we've completely scanned out and we are moving to completely paperless.
Thank you. Amy, you'll have 60 seconds for however you'd like to use it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this job. I don't think of it really as a job per se. I think it's just serving the public. And I've been into those type of positions practically, all my life, I guess. I've been through the military and in the Air National Guard, and that's when I met my husband. And we've served, when I went with him across different countries and such, I've always went and I volunteered with other folks, whether it would be the Spouses Club or whatever it might be. I was always involved in something, the safety of the kids. We were in the disabilities group, and we'd give them the Olympic Day. So I've always been involved with those types of things, and I do look forward to serving the public once again.
Gil, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of questions that have come here have been around Greenbelt, and there's been some concern about that. Something that I've been, musing around and talking at some of the platform events that I've had is we have boards or committees in the county that help make decisions that guide the county's operations. We have weed boards, we have travel and tourism. Perhaps it's time to get a Greenbelt board. A board that can go together and actually review some of the decisions that are made and make recommendations to the assessor, so that people can have more confidence and the process can be as transparent as anyone could be interested in doing. That board could consist of the assessor and several other producers that utilize Greenbelt, as well as possibly some people that don't. Submit those applications to that board, and we have 120 days to review any application that comes in. And so that's one way that we could be more efficient in doing with that process.
Thank you, Gil. This is the last question before we go into closing remarks.
Okay.
Gil, you'll start. What would you say to those who say you have failed over the last couple of years?
Okay. I would say that they haven't had a chance to meet me. They haven't had a chance to see what we've done. I mean, there are a tremendous change going on, not only in the assessor's world, but in the appraisal world in general. AI is looming into every single aspect of the, if it's got data, AI is gobbling it up. We've already met with people who have offered us and demonstrated what these powerful tools are out there. If people think that I am not engaged or I have not been on the cusp of every new change that's going on, they haven't watched any of the events. They haven't seen the way that every question that people pose, I'm ready and I have an answer for it. Why? Because I am engaged. It's just like sometimes the answer is not what they like, that I'm not agreeing with them. But I do have reasoning behind everything that I do as far as at the state level. We have a lot of state leaders that create laws on a given basis every year that want to move in and take over some of the local control that they don't think that the local elected officials are doing a good enough job. They want to take control of that. HB 270, I texted and was pushing back on that law directly as it was being voted on the House floor this year. And we got it turned over, and that prevented taxes from being increased in our county. And that's something that I'm very proud of. And so if people think, hey, this person's failed, they've been listening to a complete extreme ideology. And I can give examples and I can describe in detail the ways that I am being a voice for the people of Carbon County, and I'm being very successful at the role of being an assessor.
Thank you, Gil. Amy, what would you say to those who question your qualifications?
You know, I think you have a great question because you deserve the best. And so I think, you might want to question that because absolutely, if I don't have that certification right now, you're wondering how come or how am I going to get it? And that was one of the questions tonight too. So I am qualified to do this job. I can do this job. It's just a matter of getting that license, and the codes allow me to do that. Any county assessor can be voted in, and you have 36 months. It allows you to get that license that you need. So I'm going to hit the ground running when I come into that office, and I will be there for you, the public, because I want to make sure you have the resources you need. I want to have it transparent for you to see, and I want to bring our valuations in an equal way so everybody is paying their fair share.
Thank you. Gil, 60 seconds.
Yeah, and to close out this thought, I mean, I've said it before, I mean, the volume that was previously done, 10 years previously before me, the assessor would move the tax roll about $30 million on average every year. Under the years that I've been there, we've moved it $300 million every year. That's 10 times the volume. I mean, we were making the decisions in 1 month that they were making over an entire year. That is like drinking from a fire hose. The decisions and the pressure and everything that you've got to respond to, it's high stakes. And I know that that I can do that. I know that I can continue to do a good job of it. And I'm very proud of not only the staff that I work with, because they have all of them were doing something completely different just a year ago, and now that they are, they're serving the people here in Carbon County.
Amy, 60 seconds.
Just to top that off is, making sure that we have organization in that office and we have teammanship and leadership. And that's what you need to move forward with this office, because that way you can make sure you have the customer service that the people of this community deserves.
Okay. Here comes the very last question. Not really even a question that was emailed in. It's the way we typically close these out. Amy, you will get the first 2 minutes on this, okay?
We're closing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Why should the citizens of Carbon County vote for you in the upcoming primary election? You have 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you, voters out there. I hope that you will vote for me. I think I can provide the leadership that you need in that office. I think the teammanship, I'm a team player, and I like to collaborate with others. I want to be able to do that for the citizens. I want to do that for you. You are their citizens. It's a public service office, and I want to do my best there. I will get the certification that is required of me. I do have a great background of leadership and financial resources that I can tap into, so I know that I can do that readily. The the other thing is I want to just help promote that office so that we have a transparent and resourceful office for you to come into, and that we're there for you. That means a whole lot because a public service, you're paying our wages, and I think it is so important for you to know where those wages are going, where those tax dollars are going. And so that's what I want to give to you. So I look forward to your vote. If you have any questions whatsoever for me, please go to my website at www.voteforamy2024.com, and I give more information on what I'm doing there, and it gives more background about me. You can also call me at 435-938-8168. You can text me or you can give me a call, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Amy. Gil, 2 minutes. Why should the citizens vote for you?
Thanks, Jordan. Gillan Bishop, I am seeking re-election, and I'm asking for your vote. Why? Because I am the only qualified Republican candidate standing, and I know that this year, being a Republican, it actually means something. When you put forward and say, this is my platform and this is my stance, it defines you as a person. It defines you as hey, this is the things that we stand for. I stand for limited government. And I stand behind that because I go in, I will push back against state level control. Too often we have people that say that they're Republicans. They don't want, they want limited government, and yet they will allow large-scale government, state level, to creep into the local level and not reassert themselves. It's just like, I know that, I want to express that I know that I can do this job, and I have been doing this job. I know that I've met with hundreds of people, and the people that I've met with, the people who have come in, sat down, I've shown them the tools that we have at our disposal and how the process runs. They know, I know that every single one of them know when they leave that office that I am competent, I am professional, courteous, and I am doing a good job for them. I have not had any, without the few exceptions, I haven't had any bad experiences when I've had a chance to sit down and talk to someone and to go through the process. I know that in this day and age, there is a need to have a voice and to make sure that your voice is heard, and I can be that voice for the people of Carbon County in the things that are important in the taxation world.
Thank you. I want to thank both Gil and Amy for taking out the time to join us here on the campus of USU Eastern in the Alumni Room at the Jennifer Leavitt Student Center. We're actually going to be right back here in just a couple of days. On Thursday night, we're going to move over to the Republican for State House District 67. Now that will feature incumbent Christine Watkins and challenger Thomas Hansen. Remember, you can get those questions in. You still have time to do it. Just send us an email at election2024@KOAL.net. That's election2024@KOAL.net. I do want to go over the key dates once again before we close things out. Early voting for the 2024 primary election is going to be conducted at the Carbon County Administration Building. That address is 751 East, 100 North. It'll take place downstairs during the hours of 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. beginning Tuesday, June 18th through Friday, June 21st. Voters should be registered to vote on or before June 14th in order to receive a ballot by mail. As far as voting in person, that'll take place on June 25th at the Carbon County Administration Building from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's been a pleasure to join you this afternoon. I look forward to doing it again on Thursday. Don't forget, you can watch this once again at castlecountryradio.com. It'll be on demand there, and also on our YouTube page, KOAL, Castle Country Focus. Thank you.
Good job.